Today we'll be exploring all 12 cabins of Camp Half-Blood in Percy Jackson. Each cabin represents a different Greek god, housing their demigod children with unique traits and powers. We'll start off with cabin 1, dedicated to Zeus. Zeus's cabin is not only an impressive structure, but it's the most imposing and largest of all the cabins at Camp Half-Blood. This is reflecting Zeus's status as being the king of the gods. The cabin is constructed out of marble to look like a mausoleum, but to the untrained eye, a bank. It has a polished bronze door that shimmers like a hologram, so that from different angles, lightning bolts appear as if they're streaking across. Now on the inside, the dome ceiling is decorated with a blue and white mosaic cloud-like structure. The walls are carved with alcoves, each having a gold eagle statue on marble pedestals. Now, the decorator, I'm assuming, just kept the entire room barren because there's little to no furniture inside. The only thing you're gonna find is the bed of whoever's that single demigod living there. Now in the center of the cabin, there's a 22-foot tall, fully colored statue of Zeus with a lightning bolt, as if he was going to smite someone. Speaking of lightning bolts, children of Zeus, their powers are no joke. So let's talk about their powers and abilities. Children of Zeus are known for their control over air and lightning. Some of the abilities they may possess includes electrokinesis, the ability to manipulate electricity, which powers range from simple electrical shocks to summoning lightning bolts. And then there's aerokinesis, control over air and wind, allowing the user to possess flight and even create air vortexes around the wielder, which can even be used when submerged in the water, providing oxygen. Finally, my personal favorite, weather manipulation. Weather manipulation seems to have a subset of powers. This will include electrokinesis and aerokinesis, but they may even be weaker variations of the two. This allows the wielder to create wind and lightning-based storms, such as tornadoes and thunderstorms. So children of Zeus are natural-born leaders. They often find themselves as the nucleus of the pack. They all exhibit a strong will that often intimidates even the strongest of demigods. This also mirrors Zeus's effects on other Greek gods. Children of Zeus also gain an affinity in high altitudes, such as aircrafts or high mountain peaks. Anything that essentially gets them closer to the sky. You know, their element. Ironically enough, just because you have an affinity for the sky doesn't mean you can't be afraid of heights. As far as we know, Zeus' children still take fall damage. Now from the king of the gods, we move on to the queen, Zeus' wife, Hera, whose cabin also stands out, albeit for different reasons. So cabin number 2 was done in a similar style to cabin 1, but it was smaller, and the only difference from the outside was that the doors were carved differently with a peacock feather design shimmering in different colors, and columns covered with pomegranate fruits and flowers. Now on the inside it was empty, and it's as cold as a freezer, with a circle of white columns surrounding a central statue of the goddess. So here is a trait about this cabin that's exclusively unique. Cabin 2 is indefinitely empty, as Hera doesn't have any demigod children. As the goddess of marriage and fidelity, Hera doesn't engage in affairs with mortals. Thus, unlike other gods, she doesn't produce demigod offsprings. This is reflecting her commitment to marital loyalty. As sad as it is, she leaves infidelity to her husband Zeus. Up next is cabin 3, other words, the Poseidon cabin. Now, cabin 3 is described as being long, low, and solid, with all the windows facing the sea. The outer walls dressed with rough gray stone with pieces of seashell and corals. Keeping up with the trend of cabin 1 and 2, cabin 3 is also empty. Depending on what point of the story we're referencing, there could be some decorations of some bronze and cambi hanging from the ceiling. But the biggest addition is a water fountain that sits in the room. Now, this fountain is pretty awesome. It allows for iris messages, which makes the Poseidon cabin one of the only cabins with the ability to make outside calls outside the camp. So children of Poseidon have an affinity in water, allowing it to augment their own powers, even promoting healing, such as minor cuts, stabs. Additionally, they have the power to detect their location or sea coordinates, and they also have pressure and heat resistance, even immunity to being wet, which comes in handy when traversing the bottom of the sea. This is all connected to hydrokinesis, the ability to control and manipulate water. The power of hydrokinesis isn't just limited to liquid water. Children of Poseidon can also manipulate water in a different state of matter, such as solid and gas, meaning they can control ice and vapors. Now, it's not clear if children of Poseidon can change the water's state of matter, nor have there been any showings of them manipulating the temperature of the water, but that hasn't stopped them from having great control over water as a whole, such as manipulating and controlling poison itself. Now, this feat alone has made others speculate whether they're capable of manipulating mortals' blood. Currently, not enough information but when it comes to water manipulation, the possibilities are endless. Being a child of the sea god also grants powers over watercraft, such as boats and ships. They're able to control the ropes, the sails, and even anchor their ship. They're pretty much like a one-person ship crew. Poseidon is the god of storms, which offers some degree of control over the weather. With weather manipulation, they're able to summon at will sea storms such as hurricanes and typhoons, which will definitely involve some form of air manipulation to do. But nevertheless, it's exclusively storms that originate from the sea. Additionally, Poseidon isn't just the god of the sea. He's also known as the Earth Shaker. The ability to create earthquakes is a possible ability that one may inherit from him. Like their father, their emotions and actions can be as shifting and changing as the sea. This can be both good and bad, kind of like a double-edged sword. On one hand, their unpredictable moves keep their enemies guessing. They never know what they might do next. But on the flip side, even their friends sometimes get surprised. Their shiftiness may lead itself into the fact that they're also short-tempered. Often impulsive, they tend to act on instinct rather than careful thought, a trait that can plunge them into hot water from time to time. You know, speaking of hot water, the camp was having financial issues at one point, and our next cabin essentially saved the day. I mean, you would think that the all-powerful Greek gods would simply fund the camp's expenses, but nope. Cabin 4 sells strawberries. With the strawberry fields being located inside the camp, they can grow year-round rather than seasonal. So essentially, Cabin 4 funds the entire camp. If you haven't guessed it, Cabin 4 is Demeter's cabin, goddess of harvest and agriculture. Now, outside of the first 3 cabins, Cabin 4 is our actual first normal cabin we'll be visiting. The Demeter cabin has a unique roof covered in green grass. Tomato vines climbed up the walls. The porch is decorated with wildflowers and roses. It's painted a light brown color. Inside, similar to the roof, there's grass for the floor. I'm assuming it's soft and not the prickly kind, making this one of the most comfortable cabins to walk barefoot in, if you ask me. Right in the middle of the cabin, there's an oak tree standing tall, holding up the ceiling. So technically, you can kind of call this a treehouse. Children of Demeter thrive in nature, deriving strength from their surroundings. Their power, chlorokinesis, allows them to control and manipulate plants. This ability is most powerful in nature-based settings, far from urban landscapes. However, even in concrete jungles, they can still grow and shape plants from seeds. Children of Demeter always carry their seed in tool pouches. Now, the most rare and skilled among them have even the ability to summon sentient plant life, such as grain spirits called Carpo. There's a common misconception that children of Demeter are weak. Perhaps this is because their close association with nature and plants. However, this couldn't be more farther from the truth. In reality, these demigods, they're not only strong, but they're exceptionally skilled in combat. In particular, blades. And this could be associated with their skills of reaping the harvest. Children of Demeter are nurturing and caring individuals, just like their mother. But what really sets them apart is their remarkable ability to deal with, or better yet, put up with some of the most challenging personalities. Just like tending to the most stubborn of flowers, a child of Demeter can make a rose bloom in the unlikeliest of places. From the nurturing cabin of Demeter, we march over towards the fierce barracks of Cabin 5, home to the children of the god of war himself, Ares. Cabin 5, covered in bright red, with a bad paint job, the roof covered in barbed wire, with a boar's head hanging over the door, a possible warning for anyone who approaches. With landmines surrounding the entrance, some may even call this a fortress. Children of Ares, much like their father, are natural-born warriors, each endowed with abilities that make them formidable on any battlefield. When it's time to defend the camp, they're always on the front lines leading the charge. Together, they're a perfect unit, with physical attributes that's higher than your average demigod, granting them a superior edge in combat. But their abilities extend beyond physical strength. Children of Ares possess a unique power of weapon manipulation, which also includes the ability to transmute weapons. They have an intimidating aura and battle cry, which helps disorient their opponents, essentially giving them psychological advantage. Now, despite often being perceived as berserkers, something their fathers were well known for, children of Ares are not only physically dominant, they also are very good tacticians. Their approach to combat is a blend of raw strength, and strategic thinking, and great preparation, making them versatile and formidable opponents in any scenario. Now, they're not perfect. As smart as they are, they don't always use their heads, which can lead them into tight spots. But when you're one of the mightiest demigods around, who's gonna stop you? You know, speaking of using our brains, might isn't the only form of power. This leads us to the next cabin, Cabin 6, home of Athena's children, goddess of wisdom and battle. Athena is another war god. But unlike the aggressive and instinctive battle style of Ares' cabin, Athena's cabin embodies a different perspective of warfare, the art of strategy and wisdom. Cabin 6 is a gray building, adorned with an owl carved over the doorway. Draped with plain white curtains, the interior is a hub of creativity and intellect, housing a library and a workshop brimming with tools and gadgets. It's crammed with workbenches, tables, and 3D models of buildings, maps, and blueprints, pretty much being a brim of strategic planning and knowledge. The bunk beds pushed up against the walls suggest that sleep is secondary to their quest of knowledge, a sentiment that any night owl consumed by knowledge can relate to. Now, children of Athena are what we like to call brain children, as they're not born not in the conventional sense, but springing forth from Athena's mind. In comparison to the way other gods have been born, this isn't the weirdest thing out there. Children of Athena are kind of lacking in the flashy powers department, but their true strength is in their intellect. They're not just smart, they're practically geniuses, capable of instantly calculating and analyzing situations or even devices. Their intellect makes them extremely good leaders. You know, opposing them, you're probably gonna lose. However, their intellect can be a double-edged blade. Their confidence in being right can sometimes prevent them from seeing their own mistakes. This arrogance, a trait inherited from their mother, can cloud their judgment sometimes. Believing that their methods surpass all others is their Achilles heel. Their arrogance to sometimes even think they're above gods themselves. Children of Athena remind us that true strength often lies not in the might of the arms, but in the power of the mind. Up next is Cabin 7. They bring a burst of sunlight to the camp. Children of Apollo, god of the sun, music, poetry, healing, archery, and prophecy. He's a god of a lot of things. Cabin 7 seemingly ordinary in appearance, but once the sunlight hits it, it appears to be made of gold, emitting a blinding ray of light that shines as bright as, you know. Being one of the most populated cabins in camp, there's gonna be bunk beds from wall to wall, with a cot in the center of the cabin for any injured demigods. So children of Apollo, they tend to lean toward one talent more than the other. And these powers can land you at music, archery, or even healing. With musical powers, they can use their voice or an instrument to stun or fend off enemies with just sound waves, and possibly working very similar to satyr flute magic. As far as archery goes, their skills are some of the best at the camp. Their aim is indeed true. It transcends bows and arrows, even grants them the perfect shot in basketball. If you're bestowed the ability of healing, you gain the affinity of medicine, whether it's herbal or magical base. Apollo is also the god of prophecy, so there's a potential that some of his children can gain the ability of foresight. Essentially, they can see the future. Children of Apollo can come off as show-offs. They're not actually talented and creative people. Rather, it's being a talented musician, a rapper, poet. They're stars, and they seek to shine wherever their endeavor may be. This makes them some of the most successful and popular demigods outside of the camp. Now, speaking of demigods outside the camp, Cabin 8's occupants are rarely ever there. Artemis, goddess of the moon, wilderness, and the hunt, also twin to Apollo, doesn't necessarily have children as she is a maiden herself, but she adopts children, and these children are called huntresses. Now, they're an exclusively all-female group and pretty much travel the world, hunting monsters and doing other badass things. Camp Half-Blood is more of a hideout for them, and they have many. These ladies, they primarily live outside, setting up camp in tents wherever they go. Now, every blue moon they do visit Camp Half-Blood. Cabin 8 being the complete opposite of Cabin 7. At night, the silver cabin shines with moonlight. The huntresses, they're different from your average demigods. Every one of them are granted immortality via longevity, meaning they're no longer age, but they can still be killed by normal means. They also learn and gain hunting skills and animal-like instincts. It's kind of like they inherit a wolf pack mentality. On top of all this, they retain all their demigod powers that they originally inherited from their birth parents. Now you can only imagine how elite they are compared to your average demigods. No one wants the huntresses on their trail, because they'll hunt you down to the ends of the earth. We move on to Cabin 9, other words, the Hephaestus cabin, the god of blacksmiths and fire. Hephaestus is the blacksmith and creator of many weapons and tools of Olympus. Like their father, children of Hephaestus make weapons and tools for Camp Half-Blood. The design of cabin 9 resembles an oversized RV covered in gleaming metal and guarded by a bank vault entrance. The inside is like an entire workshop, tools and gears everywhere. And the beds were made out of steel, folded against the wall, kind of like a high-tech Murphy bed, each having their own digital control panels and a lock combination to release the bed. Every bed seemingly like a mini bunker, which allowed space for storage and even potential traps for unwanted visitors. Not appearing to be large on the outside, cabin 9 has a second floor with a fire pole, allowing demigods to slide through. There's also a circular staircase that leads to the basement. Children of Hephaestus, much like the Athena children, push the functionality of cabins to a new height, but only cabin 9 has taken their ingenuity even further beyond. So cabin 9 has secretly built a hidden bunker on the outskirts of camp. Space serves as a technological marvel, housing an arsenal of extremely advanced weapons and engineering tools. Within its secure walls, there's a variety of different blueprints and schematics of different inventions. All this is possible with the help of their technopathic powers, which in turn allows them to control, communicate, and diagnose any faults with machines or tools. Hephaestus being the god of fire, some of his children inherit the ability of fire manipulation. Now this is a rare power amongst cabin 9, like every 100 years rare. Fire manipulation deemed as an accursed ability by demigods of cabin 9, as bad things tend to follow when they appear. But most importantly, the power is very destructive, as allegedly a single demigod burned down an entire city. Now, as much as we've talked about how bad and accursed fire manipulation is, it's not without its pros. I'm talking heat resistance, good for foraging, instant nightlight, and most importantly, fire blasts. I mean, when you're surrounded by hordes of monsters, who wouldn't want these human torches around? Some children of Hephaestus seem to mirror their father's bumpy love life. Rather it's bad luck, or maybe it's chalked down to the fact that they're tinkerers, finding human interaction much more complex. Though they may not always show it, they tend to enjoy the company of machines rather than humans. This ultimately makes it very difficult for them to find their place in the world, often undervaluing their own importance to friends and family. Now they're kind of like the nut on a axle. Once missing, everything kind of falls apart. Now for cabin 9, love may be something that's hard to construct, but for cabin 10, love is as easy as breathing. Cabin 10 is home to the children of Aphrodite, goddess of love and beauty. Cabin 10 was decorated like a Barbie house, with the lace curtains and a pink door and potted carnations in the window. The cabin smelled like perfume, and the walls were pink with white window trims. The bed and the curtains being pastel blue and green. The curtains were used to help separate the boys from the girls. And though it may appear that they are super well kept and clean, like makeup, it's kind of a facade. Now, these demigods, they understand that their beauty is their greatest strength, so there's mirrors and makeup everywhere. Now, demigods tend to be very attractive people, but Aphrodite's children are on another level. But as beautiful as they may be, they have an ugly or tragically ironic view of love. Aphrodite's children like to call this their rite of passage. Make someone fall in love with you, then you break their hearts. Yes, intentionally. It's twisted but ironic. And these are the demigods of love. Love they may not, but love they do speak. French, the language of love. They lack flashy power, but their power is their charm. You know, good looks can be very persuasive, but then there's an actual power. I guess you can say a manifestation of all these attributes called charm speak. You speak it, they shall do. This is a very rare ability, by the way. A mind-controlling ability that's arguably one of the most powerful abilities that a demigod can have. It has multiple uses, from either getting free stuff, such as a free ride or a car, or making enemies fight each other. The thing that makes it so great is that it enables the user to punch above their own weight class. Aphrodite's kids are some of the most socially aware demigods around, hence the focus on their looks. They come off as mean and gossipers from time to time, but they possess a deep understanding of human emotions and social dynamics, making them incredibly empathetic and persuasive. Beneath this seemingly superficial exterior lies a general talent for fostering relationships and mediating conflicts. Their charm and social prowess often makes them the glue that holds the diverse personalities at Camp Half-Blood together. Now, similarly to Cabin 9 kids, children of Cabin 10 also struggle with love and finding out who they truly are. That's kind of hard to do when you're trapped in a world of glitter and glam. Moving on to the second to last cabin, Cabin 11, home of the god of messengers, travelers, and thieves. The Hermes cabin being one of the special cabins, as it's the largest cabin at camp. The Hermes cabin is the place where unclaimed demigods stay at, which ultimately is kind of sad. Why must they stay at cabin 11, you ask? Well, it's heavily implied he has a lot of kids. Well, you know Hermes. He gets around. I mean, someone's got to step up. Housing all these unclaimed demigods does put a toll on the cabin. Being overcrowded, the conditions are packed at all times. Everything is overworn and just straight up old. The cabin's filled with old wooden desks, beds, and curtains, with some winged shoes hanging around, adding to the clutter and worn out atmosphere. But keep a close eye on your things, as the true children of Hermes call Cabin 11 home. These tricky ones have a knack for mischief and might just swipe your stuff when you're not looking. Hermes being the god of thieves, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Just like their father, they're all jack of all trades. They possess a wide range of skills and abilities, making them incredibly versatile. They're natural athletes and they excel at different sports and physical activities, but they do favor pranks more than anything. With their quick hands and even quicker wits, escaping their pranks is often a race you're bound to lose. So this brings us to the 12th and final cabin, home to the children of Dionysus, the god of grapes and wine. The cabin is covered in grapevines, but unfortunately we don't know much about cabin 12. Rather, it's the internal appearance or the demigods that inhabit it. We do know they possess the power of chlorokinesis, quite similar to the Demeter's kids. In fact, they normally work with the Demeter kids when it comes to maintaining the strawberry fields. You know, children of Dionysus, if they're anything like their father, they might be very good at parties. If you like the content so far, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more content like this.